Hi all, DT Neal here, talking more about writing, pop culture, creative exploits and such. One thing that's sort of weird, and again, I'm talking about the movie industry, is there was a time, many, many, many decades ago, when books, novellas, and short stories were the primary sources of movie material. You do an screen adaptation of a novel or a play or a short story. And that was decades ago when that was overwhelmingly the source. Excuse me. And now, or not even now, just right now, but like in the last 20 years, we've started to see, comic books became a big source of material. And comic books. So we went from novels, novellas, and plays and short stories to comic books, and then still further, another turn of the screw in the last 10 years or so. Video games. Video games became the creative inspiration for narratives. And I look at that and I think, how can anyone look at that objectively? And again, I'm not impugning. There are plenty of things that have come from games which are actually highly entertaining when you see it as a story. But I would say, as an operating principle, it's reflective of the decline of literature, at least especially in American society, where books, novellas, and short stories and plays are marginalized and effectively irrelevant compared to comic books, graphic novels, and games. And that just feels a little bit of like people guzzling down some empty calories. And again, there have been good comic books, graphic novels, and plenty of great video games with regard to the story that they do. But I think it's interesting because, once again, going back to the thing I just said a minute ago, that idea of the Wall Street risk-averse mindset, they'll look at something like a comic book or a video game and say, wow, this video game, they sold 55 million copies of this video game, or 100 million copies of this. That's a lot of people that are invested in it. Let's turn this into a show, a television show, or a movie, and try to get some of those eyes on that, right? It's a very opportunistic move. And again, the capacity to deliver audience is the be-all and end-all, really, for a successful storyteller. Being able to carry that or be seen as a bankable commodity that the industry can make use of. And that's why it's interesting when you'll sometimes see something get turned into a show or a movie, and then it doesn't do well. Either it doesn't translate, or they half-assed it in terms of their production and pre-production, or they somehow the special sauce that was inherent in the property initially just doesn't play quite right on screen. Now, in other cases, maybe it does quite well and it does succeed. And but then what happens is the industry, they'll look at whatever one does succeed and say, let's do something like that, just a little different. And then they will run with that. And then you go back into that recursion death spiral where they are reinventing the wheel again and again and again and again, and just trying to say, well, that one worked, let's try it, our own version of it, just slightly different. The lack of imagination, the cowardice, and I'm just going to throw that out there, the corporate cowardice inherent in the big business brain is, and conformity. It's like cowardice and conformity, lack of imagination, and greed those things all drive those processes to the detriment of genuinely creative and interesting stuff. And for a lot of us who create things, that hangs heavy. It looms because I personally, like, I don't pander in terms of my work. Like, I never do. I never have. And I also understand, like, I watch these other things and it's like, well, if you had a celebrity behind this, they would be all over it because people love that. They love, the normies love celebrity. Or if it was a really retreaded kind of thing, maybe people would like that because they like that comfort and familiarity with that. But again, creativity and cowardice, they do not play well together. You cannot be a cowardly creative. And so I would urge anyone who is doing creative work to not be cowardly, and to not compromise their work and be authentic.